All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us for our HSG Dashboard, our informational kind of webinar and demonstration to walk you through what HSG Dashboard is and how you can have access to it and how it can be valuable to help your organization kind of achieve a lot of your ambulatory growth initiatives. Where we're going to focus today and how I'll try to optimize our time together is spend just about close to 10 minutes, probably less 5 to 10 minutes around what is HSG Dashboard, and then just spend some time walking you through specifically a live demonstration of the interactive capabilities of the system and how a lot of the elements can maybe or how they can be utilized for you and your organization ongoing. For those that don't know, I'm DJ Sullivan, Chief Strategy Officer at HSG Advisors, been with the firm for just over 10 years, mainly focused on the ambulatory growth aspect of how we partner with hospitals and health systems across the country. A little bit more about HSG quickly for those of you that are new to our organization. So HSG is an advisory and analytics firm, mainly focused on ambulatory growth initiatives and how organizations are achieving growth on the outpatient environment, especially around their medical groups employed and or aligned medical groups. We're in our 25th year as an organization, so historically professional consultancy that has transformed a little bit into an advisory and analytics firm specifically, and really focused around a few key elements around what we call claims data analytics. That's utilizing some third-party proprietary data that HSG has access to, doing a lot of strategy work specifically around medical staff development planning, service line growth, long-term planning around provider need in your marketplace. Doing some elements around employed provider networks, so optimizing the financial, quality, performance, and excellence of your employed providers specifically, going anywhere from boots on the ground to support some big picture organizational structure, leadership, kind of the entire gamut to support your organization. Then lastly, around compensation and compliance, do a lot of like fair market valuations, hospital-based subsidy arrangements, as well as then completely redesigning a lot of compensation model needs that organizations have as a result of a lot of the ongoing changes annually around coding, documentation, elements such as that. For today, where we're going to spend a little bit more time is on the dashboard. What is HSG Dashboard specifically? So a few things that I want to focus on, that this has kind of been a transformation and evolution of HSG, the organization as a company, where our HSG Dashboard environment is a Tableau cloud-based data visualization environment. That is what we use for a lot of our proprietary data visualization needs is Tableau. But it incorporates some proprietary data sets, our all-payer claims database. We use a lot of third-party data sets from state-level market share, census data, other publicly available data sources, and or even incorporate a lot of client-specific data from your organizational health system. And let's take all those disparate data sets and bring them together into one cohesive environment, into one centralized location, so that we can continually discuss and kind of review everything kind of not in separate silos, but let's bring it together so that we can have a cohesive message around outpatient growth, service line initiatives, geographic growth initiatives, so that they can kind of all be focused and have the same lens around how we're looking at those separate and disparate data elements. There's a number of core solutions that we'll talk through a little bit more specifically that flow from that. Clients of ours that have access to the system, it's a 24/7 environment. We do potentially, once a quarter when we do quarterly data updates for a lot of clients, there may be a long weekend where you maybe don't have access, but otherwise 24/7 access to you and your team. But then more importantly, and one of the elements is we've obviously tried to optimize this space and how clients are leveraging data within their organizations. We also like to ensure that we have a kind of third-party strategic advisory support for your organization that you can have access to on an ongoing basis. So we have our strategic advisory team that supports your organization in an ongoing fashion to ensure that you're utilizing data effectively and getting the return on the investment you've made and access to data and ongoing reporting initiatives for your organization. This is just a recap of the types of organizations and hospitals and health systems we partner with, anywhere from community level hospitals to academic health systems, as well as we have a number of state level relationships with Kentucky and Ohio and a few others in conversations now, where many hospitals throughout those entire states are utilizing HSG's data elements, as you'll see available in HSG Dashboard, for the entire hospitals across those entire states as well. So a few things around the reporting structure of HSG Dashboard. So like I said, we'll spend a little bit more time in the ongoing data environment itself, which is a 24/7, like I said, interactive access environment that your team can have login access and credentials around. But then additionally, we've had a lot of needs from clients and requests for kind of ongoing PDF generation of reports. So our professional services team developing and customizing reporting outputs for you to have access to on an ongoing basis. And I'll show you some, common ways in which we're doing that for clients now that may be valuable for you in your organization as well. The last element around the engagement team. So there's a number of elements around kind of that strategic advisory support that I want to touch on quickly, is going to be one, a kind of dedicated client strategist. So every partner organization we have has a dedicated individual that is, their goal is to ensure that the data elements you have access to that we're optimizing in your dashboard environment are being applied to the strategy of your organization. There's additionally a dedicated client success manager whose role and responsibility is ongoing kind of data management and cleanup, ensuring, custom report development, custom, elements around additional analytics. So that kind of being their core focal point throughout the relationship. Then lastly, some other elements I'll touch on as we get into the environment itself is having ongoing access to other HSG subject matter experts. So we may be partnered around one thing, but as you saw, we have a lot of other service array of options within our organizational suite. And so being able to have access to compensation experts or performance improvement experts at your fingertips is another element within our relationships. Then lastly, being able to have kind of what we call our knowledge center. So we do ongoing monthly lunch and learns, case studies, knowledge articles, things that as clients continue to apply data to their organization that we like to make sure they have access to in an ongoing environment. And so kind of like a knowledge center that we have with many resources, ongoing webinars, et cetera, that you have access to at your fingertips on an as needed standpoint. So with that, I'm going to transition to actually a live demonstration to kind of walk you through what HSG Dashboard is. So this is going to be pretty high level to start, but then we can talk through some specifics. This would be a HSG Advisors environment or HSG Dashboard environment. If you were to partner, that would be custom to you and your organization. And even more importantly, to the individual person level. So right now, this is our demo environment, but this would be, if I were DJ Sullivan, I might have an environment that looks a little bit different from another stakeholder within my organization. All within the context of what is it that is our relationship. So obviously within the context of HSG Advisors as a whole. And then within that, there's a number of elements we can talk through specifically within the environment. The first and kind of foremost that drives the majority of our relationships is what we call our kind of My Workbook section here on the left-hand pane. And this is going to be specifically around what are the data elements that you want to have access to. So is it employed provider network specific? Is it strategic growth? Is it claims data? Like what are the data elements that you want to have delivered to you ongoing? And within that, you can see there's going to be a number of options. So if our partnership is around strategic growth, there may be some state level data visualizations you want to have access to. This may use either your state level data sets through your state hospital association. It could use HSG's inpatient claims data set. It could use a number of different sources. There could be market demographics, which could be census led or other data elements that are available from a demographic standpoint. and or do a lot of provider supply and demand, which could be actuarial based on what's the demand for providers. So lots of different data elements that are feeding. But as we look through this, and I'll just maybe pick on one or two, within these, if you hover over, you can see they kind of get highlighted in the background. And these are just data visualizations that are built into the environment itself. So that if we want to look at market demographics, we then have the ability to look at detailed information on market demographics for the patients or individuals within our service area. So there's a number of kind of pre-built and kind of common data visualizations we have for each of these that are very specific to the most common questions we get from clients. But these can also be very customized based on your organizational needs and goals as well. So for this example, maybe I'll talk through a few things if we might want to go to our geography dashboard, which is going to be focused around what's the current population and as the most recent census data, which I actually believe is through 2022 now. So based on most recent census data, what's the current population? How is that population projected to be, 3-5 years into the future, or whatever time frame we're looking at? How is it growing? What's the median household income, as well as then maybe what percentage of the population is privately insured? Within all of these elements, I'm not going to spend all the time on just market demographics, but just to kind of show you the highlights of how a lot of the functionality is built for all of our solutions is going to be then very customized to you and your market area. So you may want to look at things by county level. You may want to look at things by individual zip code level. So let's look at, within each of these individual markets, so patients and individuals that live in Winchester, Kentucky, for this example, what's the projected population of that market population? Or, what percent is privately insured for those people? And then you can see we like to do a lot of data visualization around mapping, colorization of mapping, things like that, to kind of optimize the reporting and information side of what are typically pretty complex data sets. The other element that's nice within the system that clients tell us is that there's easy ability to extract information from the system. So if you kind of look down here, there's this kind of, export solution button down here in the bottom right, where we may want just this nice image that we want to copy and paste into another PowerPoint-based report or something like that, where we can just simply copy and paste this into a different PowerPoint if we're trying to have some sort of report around, market demographics. And that's applicable to any solution that is kind of built within the HSG dashboard environment. You can see if you look on that button, there's also ways to export data, develop custom reports, whether they be PDF, PowerPoint based, so lots of other ways to kind of extract information from the system. Going back to our homepage for a second, I'm not going to walk through all of those separate workbooks other than showing you that there's lots of different samples of workbooks that this demo example has lots of different ways that individuals like to access and report information for their organization. Like I said, coming from maybe your internal data, HSG's proprietary data, other publicly available data sets. That's where we're trying to take all of those separate elements and pull them into one cohesive place for your ongoing utilization. The other element that's, I think, critical within the HSG dashboard environment to touch on is going to be the My Reporting section here, once again, on the left-hand side, that talks through the specifics or shows examples of, we have a lot of clients that tell us we like data, but what we really want is information. We want reports that are generated and delivered to us on a consistent basis. And so within our My Reporting environment within HSG Dashboard, there's then ways to kind of build separate reports for your organization, whether it be executive leadership reports, medical group leadership reports, service line reports, other kind of samples that we work with clients on all the time. But maybe the example is we want a service line report that, for this example, we have is a cancer service line report. And your organization may say, well, we want this same report every single quarter when new data gets updated. We want this report pushed into our HSG dashboard environment. we have a number of data engineers that their roles and responsibilities within the organization is to help us optimize that, so that you could have a cancer service line report that may incorporate HSG's outpatient market share elements. So this is going to be trending of outpatient oncology services in your marketplace. Let me actually make this a little bit bigger, just for the sake of review, where we might want, this is going to be, what is the data set we're looking at, data set or sets we're looking at? What is the overall share for outpatient oncology in our marketplace? How's that trending? Where are we strong or weak if we're Baptist Health Lexington, for this example? So let's see, what is our share across the market? How are we trending across primary, secondary geographies? What's the total volume in the market doing? Is it increasing, decreasing? How are we trending across specific geographies? And then we like to get into other elements around subservice lines. And then additionally seeing, maybe more granularity around who are many of the key competitors or where patients may be going for their outpatient oncology services. There's also a lot of different ways to look at this, where maybe we're looking at pulling in a different data set around provider market share or patient flow or your inpatient data set. So there's lots of different ways and elements we could be pulling data from that we can then kind of pull into a cohesive report that's custom to you and gets pushed into your My Reports section here in HSG Dashboard on a quarterly basis. And as you would expect, as you kind of think through that, what your cancer service line lead needs may be very different than what your executive leadership needs from a reporting standpoint. And so all of those reports and generation outputs can be customized based on the actual audience of who needs to see that. And all you have to do is come in, download the report, and share with your appropriate team members based on the cadence in which you want to review that with them. So given the last few minutes we have, the other last elements I'm going to touch on are all of what we kind of had as that knowledge center component. So thinking about all the other ways, in addition to just great data and reports that you have access to, what are all the other ways that I can be supported to optimize the utilization of those things? And so a number of those fall into, one, simply some, common thought leadership elements that we're developing on HSG. So being a professional consultancy at heart, we've spent tons of times applying data to strategy for clients. So let's have consistent access to those things. If you went to our website, a lot of those elements are gated. They're just available to you here within the environment. There's always going to be those monthly lunch and learns, like I said earlier. So if you want to register for an upcoming lunch and learn in our June 18th session, which is going to be focused on advancements in provider supply and demand, you can actually register from the system, have an overview of what that is, register for the session, and have that be something else that you can just have access to have continual learning and application of data based on your organizational needs. Then there's lots of other resources available. So you can either access them here on the left-hand side, or getting into, if you we continue developing incremental educational content. We have a lot of data dictionary type questions, login access, educational sessions, things like that, as well as do a lot of third-party webinars as well. So like we do presentations with SHSMD, MGMA, other professional organizations like that in the marketplace. So we like to pull all of those elements into our HSG dashboard environment so that you have ongoing access to those as well, to make sure that you're applying data in the appropriate ways based on your organizational needs. And so the last thing I'll touch on as it relates to the environment and kind of what's generally available is then the last component is around the contacting and how do you actually communicate with HSG effectively so that we can be as responsive as possible. So over on the left-hand side, there's this kind of contact HSG component where within the entire relationship, you have kind of ongoing access to our entire kind of array of team that we have in the back end, where if you need incremental training and education, if you have general functionality issues on accessing specific solutions or educational content, whatever it may be, you can submit, kind of a contact or case element within this environment. And or if you have specific views you're struggling to see or having errors pop up, you can attach and upload files of what those errors are so that our team can kind of troubleshoot them as quickly and comprehensively as possible and kind of respond and reply to you in an appropriate manner, all within the HSG dashboard environment. And that would be applicable not just to your current solutions, but if there's incremental solutions you want to have added in, incremental users you want added, things like that, those are all elements that can be communicated directly from within the system as well. So with that, I'm probably going to pause here for now and say if there's incremental questions or comments that do come up that you would like to discuss further or do a live demonstration of data for your organization and elements that might be applicable to you and what your strategic growth opportunities are organizationally, be happy to set up a time. I'm sure our marketing support is going to put together elements of ways to schedule directly with us to kind of do one-on-one sessions if there's incremental education and or demonstrations you would like to have using your specific organizational data sets. So thanks again for your time. It's been a pleasure, and everyone take care.